Ed Sheeran claims if he loses this lawsuit for copyright infringement, he's quitting music entirely. So here's where I'm at. Ed Sheeran is currently being sued for $100 million for infringing on the copyright of a Marvin Gaye song. Now, here's where it gets interesting. He's not being sued by Marvin Gaye, who's dead, or anybody in his lineage. Odd, right? Now, in this segment, I'm going to try my best to stray away from those conversations that tend to revolve around how the music industry is made up of men in suits who like to prey upon innocent artists who need and rely upon them to make it in the industry, because without signing their life away to the devil, they would not be able to make it in the industry. And will refrain from mentioning how production studios and record labels tend to benefit from, dead artists. They tend to profit more once they pass away. So we're not going to talk about Mac Miller or even the live ones like Kesha. No. Because don't forget, it is truly irrelevant that Marvin Gaye was assassinated and some unnamed writer named Edward Townsend and now has full rights to a song that's pretty much everywhere and one of the most popular songs ever and is profiting from another man's work. But that's okay because it's in the contract. It's in the contract. So let's get to the lineage of Edward Townsend. We have the descendants that now own the copyright to this song, of course, had no creative input on it, and they've got words for Ed Sheeran. Townsend's family has been vocal about the case. This must stop, Townsend's daughter, Catherine Townsend Griffin, said last month, according to CBS News. We have enough chaos going on in the world today, besides having to stand here and worry about other people stealing other people's belongings. Because you didn't steal anybody's belongings. No, this is yours. This is yours. So what's the debate here? What are we arguing about? Well, we'll get to the two pieces of music that are at contention right now. But before we do that, let's lay the groundwork of the law we need to consider. This is a copyright lawsuit. Now, what's the basis of a copyright claim in regards to music? Well, first we need to consider intellectual property, starting with the Constitution. As we do with all law, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8, the overview of Congress's power over intellectual property. The Congress shall have power to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. The Intellectual Property Clause empowers Congress to grant authors and inventors the exclusive right in their writings and discoveries for limited times. This clause provides the foundation for federal copyright and patent systems with a parallel construction that divides into two parts, one for each form of intellectual property. As to copyrights, Congress may grant authors exclusive rights to their writings in order to promote progress of science. In contrast to that, Congress may grant inventors exclusive rights to their discoveries in order to promote progress useful arts, that is, to encourage technological innovation, advancement, or social benefit. Okay, so we're looking and considering intellectual property here, and that's given to the power of Congress through the Constitution. Okay, so intellectual property, it has to be novel and it has to be original. For intellectual property to be yours, it has to be novel and it has to be original. When is it property? When is it not? You got to consider that it's not real property. It's not tied to land, and it's not personal property. It can't be fixed to something. So in regards to copyright, we need to consider the law as original works, including written works, music, art, photo, and film. And it's important to consider through case law that ideas are not protectable, only the nature of the expression of that idea. Okay, so how does that kind of manifest itself in music? Okay, so again, going to the U.S. Code for copyright protection subsists in accordance with this title in original works of authorship fixed in a tangible medium of expression, now known or later developed, from which they can be perceived, reproduced, or otherwise communicated, either directly or with aid of a machine or device. CDs, the radio. So again, it's the act of playing that music and the medium that it's tied to. So Ed Sheeran, the song itself isn't the crime. It's the tying it to a CD and the selling of that CD, or it being able to be digitally sold through an iPod or a record, whatever medium it's tied to. It's the physical fixation to a medium and then the distribution through profit of that medium. Okay, so it's important that that's given to us, the definition through U.S. Code 102, Section 102, but that's Section A. Let's go to Section B. In no case does copyright protection for an original work of authorship extend to any idea, procedure, process, system, method of operation, concept, principle, or discovery, regardless of the form in which it is described, explained, illustrated, or embodied in such work. And tell me that doesn't make this quite the sticky wicket. Because if we think about it, what is art? What is music? It is an expression. And how is that not a concept? How is that not an idea? It may not be a process or a system, maybe not a method of operation, but it's definitely a form of expressing an idea, and there should be a freedom to that. But before we get into the weeds of that, so briefly returning back to the U.S. Copyright Code, Section 102, that gives us the subject matter of copyright, it also lists categories in which we can expect copyright to protect. 1, literary works. 2, musical works, including any accompanying words. 3, dramatic works, including any accompanying music. 4, pantomimes and choreographed works. 5, pictorial, graphical, or sculptural works. 6, motion pictures and other audiovisual works. 7, sound recordings. And 8, architectural works. You know, amongst those categories, some of them are pretty easy to measure, right? Architectural works. It's pretty easy to tell, did somebody steal this new innovative type of arch or these types of window displays? It's pretty easy to pick out pillar types or, you know, architectural styles. Literary works. Did you copyright Romeo and Juliet? Is this taking the story or concept of somebody else's? But it starts getting into a gray area the more artistic you get, right? Audiovisual works. Okay, well, is this the same picture? No, but is it pretty much close, or is it a cartoon version of the real thing? At what point do you draw the line? Again, think of an artist. I think it's very bizarre that an artist can paint Disney characters, and depending on how much that Disney character is removed from its natural scene and recreated in a new work, well, now you're creating a, Scrooge McDuck on a dollar bill. Well, why doesn't Disney own that, but, a chord progression that's deeply hidden behind totally new instruments and behind totally new lyrics? How's that a copyright, but the recreation of an image character isn't? So again, it's once we get into art that it gets very gray. And so again, now let's get into the weeds. What does it take to start measuring an art and measuring it and comparing it versus another piece of art, or specifically music? How do you measure that music? Well, of course, you look at the chord progression, you look at the rhythmic patterns and all of these types of things, but how do you draw that line? It's one thing for you to create a song on the didgeridoo, and then I recreate it with spoons, and then add a bunch of different other things. At what point is it layered enough in music that it's no longer the same song? All right, now let's talk about this case, because it just sits with me, uncomfortably. I can't put the music in this episode because it's YouTube and they don't like freedom. Now, what you're going to have to do is pause this video and go down into the description, where I'm going to have 2 YouTube links, one for Marvin Gaye's song from 1973 called Let's Get It On, and then we will also have Ed Sheeran's song from 2014 called Thinking Out Loud. First, listen to the Marvin Gaye song, and then have a comparison between the two, and I want you guys to really think about the chord progression, background music, and come into the comments with your thoughts. Welcome back. Now, I'm sure if you thought hard enough and you really wanted to fit the square block through the circle hole, you could hear that there is somewhat of a similar chord progression way deep in the back of the song. But the fact of the matter is, and again, this isn't my legal argument, this is just my human argument to begin. If you were to play both of those songs, we are in 2 different places, two different moods, two different dance floors. Our rhythm is different. First, I'm jiving in 1973. I'm enjoying the music. And then I'm slow dancing with my girl in 2014. The fact that the concept of the songs, like what they're about, and the lyrics themselves, the story being told, are entirely different. The moods, the genres, entirely different. At what point do we stop the money grubbing? So now we have some self-entitled daughter whose father just contractually happened to have one of the biggest songs in music. And at what point do we stop the overreach? It feels like it's hungry, hungry hippos. And as long as people keep creating, they're just going to keep sucking it up until there's nothing left and they have all the balls. And they love balls. So in the off chance that you are found guilty of violating a copyright and they do decide that you infringed upon that, you do have some options available to you. One specifically. And again, you have options. They're very limited. I don't find that you'll see much success in them, but again, you do have options available. Limiting the scope of exclusive rights, you have the defense of fair use. So looking at U.S. Code 107, notwithstanding the provisions of sections 106 and 106A, the fair use of a copyrighted work, including such use by reproduction in copies or phone records or by any other means specified by that section for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, including multiple copies for classroom use, scholarship, or research, is not an infringement of copyright. In determining whether use of such work in any particular case is a fair use, they use the following factors to be considered. Before we get to those factors, I just want to re-articulate that again, what the fair use defense is saying, that if you are using another person's work for the purpose of criticism, comment, news reporting, teachings, research, it is not an infringement. However, we need to take that on balance with the four factors the courts want you to consider. Firstly, the purpose and character of the use, including whether such use is of a commercial nature or is for nonprofit educational purposes. 2, the nature of the copyrighted work. 3, the amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole. And 4th and finally, the effect of the use upon the potential market for or value of the copyrighted work. The fact that the work is unpublished shall not itself bar finding of fair use if such finding is made upon consideration of all the above factors. So they want you to consider, is this for profit? How much of it did you use? Is it taking it totally? Are you just using a portion and then making a more grand? And really the way to think of it is, did you take a small piece and create a whole new piece? Or is this so substantially enough to be considered the original piece? Something that I also kind of throw out for consideration, a perfect example in regards to like public work that is within the public domain. Consider something like the president speaking. You know, NBC might show the president's inaugural address, but that's a public figure making a public address to the public. And so even though they're the only medium with exclusive rights, it becomes a public domain for us to use. If that same president were to go and be a feature in a movie and there's, you know, clips of them tap dancing, well, that's not public. That's not a public figure making a public address to the public. So that wouldn't be within, you know, the public domain. So there's kind of a balance to that too. If you're a public figure or it's something that impacts public issues, it might be something that you could make an argument for. But again, it's important to remember that it's very likely you're not going to find much success with this, especially in a scenario like Ed Sheeran, where this is an artistic piece. This isn't something public. You're not using it for educational or critical purposes, and there's no kind of public health benefit that would come from it. Now, there is something to be said. It's not like music itself is totally barred from ever finding itself in fair use. The question begs, like, Marvin Gaye song, that's a pretty popular song. You paused it, you went and listened to it, so you know, like, that's a very common song. The question begs, how long does it need to be in the public domain? How many movies does it need to be featured a part of before it becomes, you know, part of our just culture to where... So again, it's a sliding balance, but it has to be so great, right? It's public access, and then also time that it's been around has to be so long that, again, you're going to find a very difficult time making such an argument. Consider the birthday song, right? Happy Birthday. That's a song restaurants can't even sing. You think it's TGI Fridays finds it cute that they sing some like happy birthday to you and you and you. It's because they literally can't sing the happy birthday song. Somebody has a copyright to it, and he has exclusive rights to that. So what's the balance here? But again, it's a melody that we're talking about here, that it's a background chord progression that is close, similar, but chords have a finite amount. Anyway, and again, I would suggest trying to stray away from the gray area of fair use as best as possible and just create original work, but just know that not everything is off limits. Now, it's hard to make heads or tails on whether or not a lawsuit over copyright infringement in the field of music will succeed, because it could go either way. It's very hit or miss. Like, for example, a DJ named Artie recently lost a copyright infringement lawsuit which alleged that fellow artist Marshmello's 2018 hit Happier borrowed material from his 2014 remix of One Republic's song, I Lived. The Ninth Circuit held that because of Artie's licensing agreement with Interscope, who I'm assuming owns One Republic's song, expressly stated that it held no copyright interest or ownership in the copyright to the remix. Artie was not permitted to bring suit for the copyright infringement. As discussed in this case, as with many others, the terms and conditions of the license agreement govern. And that makes sense. Let's be real. At the end of the day, basic contract law should be what kind of dictates the way we approach this legally. But how do you find lines in black letter law for a contract in something as artistically vague as music? So as I was preparing for today's episode, I was really curious, where is the legal positioning on remixes? Where do your rights start and end, and how do you achieve them or obtain those rights? Unlike a cover, a remix differs in that it uses the original recording and is not just a recreation of it. This means to release a remix legally, you must seek copyright permission from the original artist or band who created the song you want to remix. Well, so let's get back to this situation with the DJ Artie and his relationship with One Republic and this Marshmello song. So Artie did a remix for his DJing career, and it took a One Republic song. He was able to legally do that because he created a contract with Interscope to use the One Republic song I Lived and remix it for his benefit. Now, what he did not realize is in that contractual agreement with Interscope, he did not have the copyright interest for disseminating it beyond the use of that remix alone. So he did not own the One Republic copyright. He just owned the right to disseminate a remixed version of it. So if anything, Interscope might possibly have an argument against Marshmello. But again, there's such this interconnected web between artists, labels, and production studios. Who knows? Interscope might have an interest in Marshmello, and that's why he was able to do it. So it's important to remember there's two things at play here. We have to take on balance the contractual agreement itself and the vagueness of the musical vibe. Now I've given you all the tools you need to kind of build this thing out with me. If you could, go to the comments and let me know where you're at on this. But my position is pretty clear. Ed Sheeran is distraught because the poor guy had to miss his grandmother's funeral in Ireland this past Wednesday because he had to be in a lawsuit in America thousands of miles away defending his right to use this song. I looked it up. There is a finite number of chord progressions in life. It is not an infinite thing. So not only are we working with a limited pool of artistic consideration, but you should be able to take those bedrock foundational cores of music and change them into totally different things. So the constitutional bedrock to this entire consideration is that the founding fathers wanted to promote science and arts. And in the pursuit of achieving that, you would think allowing people to work with the building blocks of the art, but to take that and run in their own artistic corner and make it something totally new is exactly that expression. But instead, we are so, because of our corporate interests, we're so consumed by mine, and owning it to where nobody else can use it. But then also, when you create that system, it goes far enough to where the people owning it aren't even the people that created it because they're the ones with the deck of cards and the power. We find ourselves in a rat's nest where nobody can make anything anymore. And it makes you really kind of familiarize yourself with Ed Sheeran's position that, listen, I made this in my own room with no thought to that Marvin Gaye song. And if this is going to damn me to $100 million loss, I'm never doing this again. You have totally deterred a great, professional, world-renowned artist from even wanting to continue the pursuit. That sounds like the antithesis to our goal. But who cares? Money interests are involved. And we all know that's what truly dictates any consideration in this country. We are reaching a really weird time in this world. With deep fakes, we're not going to know what's real. With AI, we're able to create movies, images, pictures instantly without any personal artistic ability or reference. You've seen the videos of people being able to take Kanye and sing an Adele song. AI, I would like to hear the song WAP sung by Donald Trump. And it would create it for you. So we're going to get to a point where we have so much information and there's so much content that we're not going to be able to police this. Do I think this will be next year? Do I think this will be in 5 years? Probably not. But in 10, 20 years, we're going to have no ability to stop it. Let's think about this. Your copyright really only protects you in America indefinitely. There's other countries that agree to kind of respect our copyright because we agreed to respect their copyright and patent law. But take a country like China. What are we going to do when somebody like China goes, yeah, no, I'm totally ignoring your patent and copyright law. And they boomed over the last 20 years by ripping off and infringing on all our copyrights and patents. And again, this is a narrative for another day, but I say China right now is in a boom because I think freedom brings about innovation. And they are kind of ripping off and taking advantage of the innovation brought by our freedom. But there's a ceiling to that. At the point at which they catch up to us entirely, they're not really going to be able to go beyond that because they don't have freedom. They don't have creative thought. It's our creative thought that kind of expands innovation for us. And so I see their ceiling being kind of wherever we stalemate, us as America. But that doesn't matter because if they don't respect our copyright law or our patent law, what's the point of protecting these things in a minor American market if China can just come up with or Korea can come up with a K-pop band that sings and sing songs and they just decide, well, we don't respect it. So we don't respect your law and there's really nothing you could do about it. So in an international market, now you're competing with somebody that's quite literally ripping it off. So part of me feels like we could all benefit from just allowing artists and creators to take on works of art. But I don't want to stray so far away that somebody can just literally rip off verbatim works of arts and pieces and everything else. It has to be changed. It has to be altered. But look at me. I'm in a pursuit of discourse, conversation, and thinking. And I'd be ignorant and stupid if I made the claim that I had any single original idea. None of us do. Nobody has original ideas. None of us are coming from a totally new discovery. We are working off the building blocks of all the people that came before us. If I didn't have the opportunity to read somebody like Socrates who lived in Greece and then fast forward 2,000 years to somebody like Hegel that lived in a modern world just briefly before ours, I would not have nearly the perspective I do today. And to sit here and go, well, my perspective is innately me. That'd be ignorant. That'd be ignorant. So everything we have is kind of a regurgitation of the world around us and stifling it and preventing it in some sectors, but allowing it to thrive in others, like Alexander Graham Bell creates a phone, and then someday down the line, we're ended up with Steve Jobs' iPhone. Like, that's a remix. In my book, that's a physical remix, but it's easier to measure, and it's in a physical tool world. The tire led to the wheelbarrow, which led to the plow, which led to the car, which led to the tank, which led to the... Well, Does the caveman that came up with the wheel have something to say here? No. So there's something to human progression. But I don't want to just throw it all to the wind. Like, let's think about that. For people to be creative and to incentivize them to want to participate in that market and actually be a player, well, that incentive has to manifest itself somewhere, and it's usually monetarily. So you want to monetarily incentivize people to profit from their work, and the way to do that is to protect their authorship and inventions and their writings and their works of art by allowing them to kind of have the exclusive ownership over that. So I think, it's a sliding scale, right? There's a gray area. You have the work of art and something totally, totally different, and somewhere in the middle, they kind of blend together. It's a remix of some kind. Well, where do you draw that line? If I drew Donald Duck, just putting an eye patch on him, making a different character, I think we'd all agree no. But, okay, where do we draw that line? At the end of the day, I implore you to take this moment and go back and listen to those two songs again, because listening to them side by side, I think really emphasizes why I come out the way I do on this. It isn't that I don't respect the need to protect people's individual works to then promote a more fruitful and flourishing market for everybody else, but these two songs, to make a claim that some guy's daughter who is in a contract with Marvin Gaye has a claim to Ed Sheeran's Slow Dancing with Your Girl song is just ridiculous. If you disagree, I need you to go to the comments and let me know why. So wrapping up, Ben Crump, a renowned civil rights attorney representing the Townsend family, is quoted saying, "Thinking out loud exemplifies the history of appropriation of black artists' work. For far too long, black artists have created, inspired, and spread music all around the world. And Ed Townsend's family believes artists, like Ed Sheeran's infringement of black artists, is merely another example of artists exploiting the genius and the work of black singers and songwriters." You didn't think you were escaping this thing without a racial claim, did you? And quick side note, if you're unfamiliar with who this Ben Crump guy is, let me give you an idea by reading you his most recent client list. Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd. Okay, so they're the ones coming out here making all these racial claims. I bored you with the first half of this episode with all this legal jargon. It's all black letter law. I've made it very clear this is just contract law. This isn't some dispute between two artists, or let's be real, a daughter of somebody who knew an artist suing an artist. No. It has nothing. This is just contract law. It has nothing personal. The people behind the screens, this is just people in suits fighting over money. It has nothing to do with the people. It has nothing to do with race. You bringing that into it, and you being an attorney that, focuses and specializes on racial disputes, you seeking out Ed Sheeran on something so gray and so vague makes me think that you're racially motivated. Are you racist? I don't think we need to start throwing these accusations at the right people. You're in the business of finding racism. A guy that doesn't even know these people, and two totally unrelated songs, you're finding the racism. Something tells me you're the racist and you're in the business of it. I bite my tongue. At the end of the day, I get it. Elvis was a bad guy and stole all your groove, but this is getting old. This divide that is nonsensical and based on immutable characteristics, you're either of the party that's trying to get over race, or you don't realize it, but you are the party that reinforces racism every day. Racism doesn't exist. It's fake. Just like if we had societies way back in the day, the tribalism that created racism was one tribe was this color, another tribe was this color, and when they fought, one conquered the other, and that's where the position of power and inferiority was created. Now, that in our world was based on race. In another reality, it could have been based on height, weight. You could have had a tribe of small people that was taken over by giants, and then guess what? Race is now perpetuated. They're the same color and they look the same, but now the immutable characteristic that we're focused on through tribalism is height. But again, it could be anything. We as a community, as a people, as a humanity, as a race, We recreate racism every day. So you need to ask yourself, what part are you playing in that? Are you defining yourself through identity politics? Well, then you are not judging yourself based on your character, and you are judging people solely based on their skin. So here's where I'm at. I totally agree with Ed Sheeran. If my passion project that I was doing on my own, and I knew in my heart of hearts that I wasn't piggybacking off of the works of other people and undercutting them by stealing all of their hard efforts. No. If I knew this came from my soul and I gave it my all and I created a podcast on copyright that was similar to somebody else's and I didn't even realize it, and they could come cut me and take me for $100 million because, well, we kept the same pace, right? Like, look at the newscasters. What if it was just the tone? Like, if I talked and reported like this, then you'd be like, oh, you stole that from NBC News. Yeah, that's a copyright infringement. Where do we draw the line? And if I was in my passion project and I did it from my heart of hearts and it's costing me $100 million, yeah, I'm hanging it up. I'm realizing this probably just isn't the thing for me and I should probably move on because you'll just take it from me again. I'm going to leave it up to you to be the judge. Head on down to the comments and let me know, where do you feel this comes out? If you're the judge, who are you siding with? Scary part is this is going to a jury, and I do not trust my peers because our masses are ignorant. But at the end of the day, we got to hope for the best because the scary part is this is probably going to create precedent for us moving forward. Now, I am happy to report in between the time of recording that episode and now editing the episode, about really not even 2-3 days, as of today, May 5th, but really yesterday, May 4th, Ed Sheeran did officially win his lawsuit and justice prevails. I hope we come to the realization that this world we're moving into is going to make it almost impossible for us to really hold tight our intellectual property like we've been able to do in the past. And we're going to see this evolve. I don't know where it goes, but I really hope it allows enough freedom for people to continue to be creative, but still, let's acknowledge that nothing is truly original, and we should be able to build upon the foundational building blocks that are presented to us. Anyway, guys, so here's where I'm at. I'd like for you to head on over to the comments and let us know what you think. Dangle that notification bell. Subscribe. We love you. You can find all of our content at www.rethinktakepodcast.com. Otherwise, guys, so here's where I'm at.